Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Design Review Board public meeting of August 22nd, 2019 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, on any of the applications to be reviewed today are asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be asked to speak by the board when your case is called. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project in the event of a return for redesign decision by the board must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. And a handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeals is available from staff. Roll call. Ms. Arzumanian, absent. Ms. Boyajian, absent. Mr. Benlian.
Here.
Mr. Simonian.
Present.
Mr. Welsh.
Present.
Great. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on August 15th, 2019. Oral communications. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of the agenda? Any postcards by any chance, or speaker cards? None? Okay. Staff announcements. Staff does have one announcement. It is item number B under design review cases. It is PDR 1725676 located at 1809 Verdugo Boulevard. That case has been taken off this agenda and will be continued. We don't have a date yet, so the public noticing will be redone. So anybody interested in that case will be re-noticed regarding that project. Procedures of the meeting. Design Review Board staff will give an overview of the project. The applicant or the applicant's authorized representatives will be asked to come forward stating both name and address and interest in the project. They will have 5 minutes to present the project. The board may ask questions at that time. Others in support of or in opposition to the project will be asked to come forward, again, clearly stating both name and address. Each speaker will be allowed 2 or 3 minutes to speak. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to make any closing comments or rebuttal and will be given 2 minutes to speak. The hearing will then be closed and the board will discuss the project amongst themselves and render a decision. Board members may ask questions of anyone, but there will be no further debate or further comments taken. The board may entertain staff's comments and recommendations during its deliberations prior to making a decision. Record of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. And finally, please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. So that concludes what I have to say, and we are down to our DRB cases for the evening, 2 of them.
We might want to check the lady who just walked in, check what case she's for Verdugo.
Oh, ma'am, are you?
Yeah, I live in Verdugo.
You do? Okay. We're going to start the meeting, and then if you could come up here, I can talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. So we're going to go ahead and switch up the cases. So we're going to start with PDR 1908121, 1980 Rangeview Drive, and we'll start with the applicant, Narek. Or no, staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll give a really brief.
I want to get, I was going to get to Narek right away. Okay, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project before you proposes to demo an existing single-family residence and construct a new two-story, approximately 3,200 square foot single-family home. It's located on a lot that's a regular shape that has like a flag lot configuration. It's at a corner. It's located in the R1 zone. There is a single oak tree, which is a protected species, that's 30-inch trunk diameter. This project was routed to our urban forester. No substantial comments were provided. However, there are conditions involved with our analysis or our recommendations to you that an indigenous tree ordinance permit be provided. And this is really in regards to the gazebo and the pool in a future date. Moving on to site planning of the proposed project. As you can see, it has an extended setback here. It's going to be approximately 71 feet to the closest point, but maybe to the front entry is about 74. So it's going to be set back substantially away from the street. It's not going to break pattern from the neighborhood site planning. It will be further away and will not break line from what's exhibited on the street. Just moving on to mass and scale, the property will be a little bit under 27. It's going to be 26.11 inches in height. As you can see from the elevations, it will provide some articulation. It will be broken up in volumes, and it will. We feel that will break up the mass. The second level will be set back about approximately 5 feet from the first level, so which also helps with reduce the mass of the building. Overall, with the design, we feel that is compatible with the context of the neighborhood. It will provide quality materials such as metal standing seam roof, stucco, stone veneer at the base, and then it's going to have wood-clad aluminum windows. Overall, staff recommends approval. We do have several conditions that we're recommending, and the first two is in regards to landscaping up at the front. And the first one here is staff is recommending that the landscaping here on the western property line be continued up to the street here and widen, and that's just to soften the appearance of the two adjacent property driveway as well as the proposed driveway. And also the second condition is in lieu of the pedestrian passageway that they're proposing on the east side, we're recommending that this area be provided with a variety of shrubs, trees, ground cover of California landscaping to enhance the appearance from the street, and also it's to compliance with the zoning code, because the zoning code does require the street front setback to have a 50% landscape coverage. So it's going to have a dual purpose for that condition.
On that note, I assume that 50% is only in the front setback portion and not beyond. Is that what the code dictates?
Technically, that's what the code. That's what the code says. Yes.
Because in this case, we have a long kind of a driveway.
71, 74 feet. Moving on to the third one, condition is in regards to the balcony in the front. We're just recommending that this be set and relocated to a further location away from the street, just to enhance the overall architectural concept. We just believe it should just move to another area. Number 4, they're proposing nail-on windows. We're with staff.
Dennis?
Yeah.
If I may.
Sure.
The balcony, we're asking for it to be removed from the front elevation altogether, correct? Or to another area?
To another area.
It can still be in the front?
We were just saying at an area, because this is kind of staff's opinion, is just that this has like a backyard element since this is facing the street. If it were to be a little bit more of an area less pronounced at the front, maybe to another area. That's all how we feel about it.
Okay.
The windows are proposed are of quality material. However, staff recognize that the windows are going to be nail-on, and we're just stating that just what's viewed on the renderings, we can see that it has a recessed placement, it has like a sill. We're just recommending that when you come in for plan check, we want to understand with a section detail how this is going to achieve the recessed placement. And I understand there's a section here, but I don't think this really shows how it's going to be replaced with a nail-on fin, because I can't locate it on here. Regardless, we feel that we can work with the applicant on achieving that. Condition number 5, this is in regards to the moldings underneath the eaves and then the sills. Staff is just recommending quality materials, wood sills or precast, high-quality EIFS, just not, what was it, the foam finish on the, yeah, on site. Correct.
Field finished foam.
Field finish foam, yeah. And the last two were the ones I mentioned before. It was regards to the oak tree, that a indigenous tree permit be permitted, submitted at plan check so they can verify the exact location of the gazebo and that they show accurate drip lines. The arborist did go out on site. They observed and looked at where the tree was. They just want to verify where exactly is this going to be in respects to it. They don't feel that the gazebo is going to have a major impact.
The gazebo and the pool are under separate permits, right?
It does state that, but however, they are providing section elevations for the gazebo. If they do come in, the arborist would like to take a look at that. We do feel that it's not a major concern. It's at the back. It's not really visible from the street.
Just to clarify, so
Yes.
you're not actually, in their condition, you're not proposing that they diminish the amount of concrete at the front? You're just talking about adding some other elements?
Well, we are asking for the removal of paving, particularly, I mean, we're not asking
Add
for,
that you have to remove some.
you do to comply with zoning code. We're not saying it shall be, we're going to be asking you to comply with zoning widths. We're kind of leaving it to the board to either agree with us to find where that sweet spot is.
How far past the setback is what, I guess, the question of what you want some feedback on.
Yep, that's correct. We just had concerns about the appearance of the two adjacent driveways. It just creates an appearance, I believe, that just not cohesive. And we're suggesting, as condition number 1, is to extend and maybe widen this planter so you can kind of break it up that way. And then this pathway here be removed, because you've got like a, this could be easily be 11, almost 12 feet wide. It's enough for someone, staff
It's
feels.
a lot of hardscape.
Yeah, that's a lot of hardscape in the front. But this concludes staff's recommendation as far as conditions and so forth, but yes.
Mr. Joe, so when I'm looking at this picture, I could see that the majority of kind of pavers as depicted in this picture seems to kind of provide access to the adjacent home. And when I'm also looking at the existing survey, I could see that survey matches the picture where the same pavers have approached onto this property. Is there some sort of an easement between these two? Are you aware of an easement between these two driveways?
I am not, however, we can confirm with the, I don't think this is a licensed survey
He needs
done.
to
We can confirm with
Okay.
the architect on site to see how accurate that is. Because you do see like a proposal of this one and then this one. We can maybe perhaps clarify how is that going to happen?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And, because in a sense, you have this existing pavers that are happening next door, they've encroached onto this property, and now, if, in essence, this property owner could remove that portion and redo whatever they feel is appropriate on theirs, and then we gotta talk about that happy medium. How wide is that, the flagpole portion of the lot?
25 feet.
Okay,
Yeah. 25 feet.
I see. And the driveway portion as depicted is, or by code I should ask, is 18
You're talking about depth or are you talking about width?
width?
So if you require a pedestrian path, it's 10 feet.
If
Maybe
you
width.
require a pedestrian pathway on a
Yeah.
residential property,
Yep.
you would have to have a minimum of 10 feet.
10 feet, that's correct.
I see.
Or you could do a combination where you could make it technically 9, and you can separate it with a planter box. I think it's going to be, 18 inches, 2 feet. That excludes the planter, and you can have that. But we do have that provision of the code that says 50% of the setback has to be landscaping. And we just kind of feel like the wide driveway already provides the walkway path. And we can feel we can get extra value of more landscaping here, you break it up.
I wonder, are there any specific footnotes to that section of the code that deal with the flagpole portion of a flag lot?
I don't think so, but I will double check that. Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Any other questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Thank you, Dennis. And we'll go ahead and open up the public comments, and we can start with the applicant, Narek.
Good afternoon, Board. Chairman Benya. My name is Narek Kodadadi. I'm the designer at Design NRK. Office is on file. I think whatever Dennis said, it's, it can be modified or changed as far as the windows, or if I know I did spec out nylon. I did talk to a window manufacturer. They did say we can trim the fin off and use it kind of like a block window. So I think that's why I did leave it as nylon.
If I could jump in there, what we've seen lots of, you don't get a great waterproofing detail if you do that. What we've seen is that your rough opening is big enough to allow the entire edge of the fin to sit into
on
the
a
window opening,
blocking.
and then you block that out to kind of make it appear that it's kind of set into the
Recess.
wall.
Okay.
So that's the detail we're looking for. We can work with you on
Okay.
that.
I think one of those details is kind of close to what you're saying. And as far as landscaping in the front, it's it's kind of like a flag lot, so I did the most I could. Given the where you drive down the car, that side obviously, and then a buffer between the driveway and a pathway to the house. And actually, the homeowners, they own next door as well, so they live next door. So they can talk about the easement and how they kind of share currently.
So they live in the property that shares that driveway?
They share that apron, yeah. As far as the front balcony, we would like to keep it since it is kind of far from the street and it's kind of tucked away, behind the main structure of the first floor. I can resize it, maybe make it a little narrower, but just breaking up the roof over the two-car garage. I think it looks a little bit nicer when you have the roof and stucco and maybe some nice wrought iron guardrail. It just gives it another dimension, I would think. I think other than that, whatever.
So other than the balcony in the front, do you have any issues with any of the other conditions? There's 7 conditions.
Yeah, no, I don't have any other issue. The trees, that's fine. We can do the permit before the building construction starts. As far as the molding, that's fine too. We can spec out precast concrete or high quality molding, stone.
Something pre-manufactured or?
Right, we're okay with that. Precast concrete is fine. I've used it many times.
So the balcony, basically.
I think, probably.
Yeah, okay.
If we would kind of keep.
Any questions for the applicant? Go for it, Mr. Simonia.
So in regard to, thank you for clarifying that the applicant also owns the property next door. Are you aware of any easements between these two properties? Easements that are recorded against the property?
I think so. We're just talking about that, and I think there is an easement in the title.
For them to have a shared driveway of
Yeah.
some sort?
Right.
I see.
A shared apron, probably.
Okay, makes
Opening.
sense. The second question I had, is there a particular reason why you divided up the 2 garage bays into 2 separate bays, put a column between it and had 2 separate doors? Because in a way, it's kind of, well, you already have a tight radius when you're backing up due to that, half hexagon.
Right.
And in addition to that, you have a very nice horizontal facade, and that's kind of creating some verticality. And so I was wondering, was there a particular reason why you divided up those bays?
I think it's just been through researching here and there and seeing, what looks good, and I think that kind of fits the facade, and that's, between the owners and I, that's what we picked.
And do you anticipate kind of utilizing that shared driveway a little more with the adjacent owner? Because, I mean, that radius is very tight as you're kind of leaving the garage, right? You almost have to avoid that half hexagonal shape
Right.
to back up, probably do a three-point turn to go. And I noticed you have that landscaping along the whole western side of it.
Right.
Do you plan on, I mean, has that been thought through to keep that landscaping all the way really to the garage? Because, I mean, in essence, if it is an easement, et cetera, you might have some flexibility.
So take out the landscaping?
Well, I'm asking a question, whether that was thought.
We didn't think about that. Currently, I don't think there's any landscaping, so it's
I
kind of
see.
open, right? Between the two driveways? There's no
Okay.
landscaping.
Since staff has brought up a couple of thoughts along the driveway, I'm just thinking out ahead.
On the right, yeah. Okay, so there's some greenery on the right going down the driveway,
Okay.
which I turned into a driveway just so I can have the walkway next to it.
Well, that greenery, I think, is past the driveway. That greenery where that small palm tree, or whatever that is in the picture, I think is the edge of the driveway and then the walkway to the residence next door. So so in other words, what you're depicting as landscaping along your west side of your property line is going to be located somewhere between the lawn on the right and the car,
Right,
more or less.
more or less, yeah.
Okay? You've answered mine.
Yeah, and the way I'm looking at this, I understand that they own the next door, but we need to look at it as if they don't.
Understood?
Because that they're not going to live in both properties at the same time. So at some point, you're going to have a neighbor next door.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that begs my question, actually.
Mr. Walsh
because
had a question. Go for it.
The living room windows are facing the corner of the neighboring house. They're pretty close together. So what room is in that corner of the neighboring house? Is that a bedroom or is that a
So
living room?
The living room window right in front of the garage? That one, right?
For the neighboring house?
No, are you talking about
I'm talking about
this house?
in the neighboring house.
Oh, neighboring house?
There's a room that is closest to the living room windows.
Oh, number
that
4.
hexagonal windows.
I'm sure.
You're talking about this area here, right?
Correct, exactly. The one that's like directly across from the living room windows.
Kitchen and family room.
Kitchen and family
Towards the street, yeah.
Okay. Because if it was a bedroom, it's awfully close, to have somebody's bedroom looking right into
Right.
a living room or living room
Yeah.
into somebody's bedroom.
And I think that's why the landscaping came up, just so having some sort of a buffer between the two.
I think, yeah, actually, in that particular zone, it would probably be more appropriate. And just a clarification, one of the renderings didn't show 2 windows by the front entranceway on the side elevation, but the plans showed it. Well, I can point it out to you. In this particular elevation.
Oh, the 2 down there?
There should have been 2 windows according
That's
to the
right.
plans. Are there intended to be windows there?
Yeah, we want to have windows there.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? No questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Garim Papazian?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I think Narek provided majority of the...
Just name for the record.
I'm sorry. Garam Papazian, 1980 Rangeview Drive, homeowner. Narek provided majority of the details on the... I think, as far as I know of the easement is from 1980 to 1982. That driveway portion of the 1982, which is the property next door, actually belongs to 1980. And that was the easement given. And the only thing left for me is to give some background of how the project came about, if that would help. We've lived on the street for the last 12 years. We got to be very friendly with the neighbors next door to us, Ruth and Jerry, who had been on the property forever. As they got older, everyday tasks got difficult for them. The kids would help them with technology issues, would help them with taking out the trash. As they passed, their daughter approached us and said, "My mom would have loved for you to have the property." We purchased the property about 3 years ago. About 2 years ago, we had the idea of building our home there. That's when, after diligence, we approached Mr. Franco Naravian as our architect. We worked with Franco because he'd done 2 houses on our street. He was highly respected. We liked his style. Ripsim and my wife and our kids would join us often, and they would have a lot of inputs. And as you may or may not know, about a year ago, Franco passed. And so we were devastated, didn't know what to do. And after sort of some break, we came back to it. And again, NAREG was recommended by many of the colleagues, attorneys, developers in the area. And we said, we like what we see here. We want to continue with what Franco has started. And NAREG had a great deal of respect for Franco as well and said, fine, I'll see it through. At the end of the day, you have what you have in front of you. The house fits well into the neighborhood, as NAREG mentioned already. We've designed the house that fits into our family's needs and can see ourselves growing old in the house. In addition to practicality and appeal to us, we have also taken into consideration the style of the house, architecture for the neighborhood, interference with any neighbors. As already mentioned, the house sits back 74 feet. So it's really, you can consider it pretty secluded. There are other houses that have already been built that are 2 stories or are the same size or larger or are in the process of being built. And then the material quality. We've also met with the staff before. They were very nice and generous in offering their doors open to us, and we've taken many of their considerations into account, what you see in front of you.
Roger, do you have the timer?
Well, that's it. Thank you in advance for your consideration of our home.
No problem. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant before he steps away? No. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So we'll go ahead and close the public comment, and we'll open it up for deliberation. And I'll start with Mr. Simonian.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, by the way, for providing a little bit of color and background as far as the history of the property is concerned, and also some more background on the driveway as well. Overall, I think the project is designed well. The way it sits back from the property, the way the second floor sits back from the first floor, the overall use of materials such as the metal roof and some of the other high-end or more high-end finishes, I think, are appealing. The way the stone veneers kind of been incorporated into the project, I think is done tastefully. In regards to the overall mass and scale, I think it's situated correctly, and I don't have any issues with those. In regards to some of the conditions that staff has brought forward that we've discussed, I think that there seems to be some consensus overall on many of these items. I think the recessed windows would be a nice touch, and I think it's easy enough to do even as a nail-on if they're recessed, as Mr. Platt described. In regards to, I think, the garage doors that I brought forward, I think due to the narrowness of the space between the garage and the hexagonal shape that protrudes out, a single garage door as opposed to 2 doors would, I think, work a lot better. Plus, I think it would help the facade. I think it would create more of a horizontal look as opposed to now it's creating more of a vertical kind of feature. And I believe if it's a dual garage door, as in one door, it actually helped kind of dovetail with the balcony above, if we do choose to keep the balcony, which I'm not, I could kind of go both ways depending on which way this, the board feels, but it is set back quite a bit, some 70 feet. And I think by the single garage door will actually soften the appearance as depicted from now. In regards to the driveway, I think when you have such a long driveway, it's always nice to have a separate path for pedestrian and a separate path for vehicles. Not only is it more practical where you kind of keep cars on one side, but it's also more in line with kind of the quality of the house that I think is being depicted. So I think, in my house, I've done that, and I would think that most people that if they have the space, they'd want to separate it because it creates a nicer entryway. In regards to the code section that outlines that certain percentages of the front portion of the lot shall be limited to hardscaping, when you have a 25-foot width and you could only have like hardscape on 55% of it, let's say, it becomes kind of onerous in a sense because you want to have kind of a double width for a car to come in, which you could argue is 18 feet, maybe 20 feet. So it's kind of a unique situation, these flag lots. What I've seen done in the past is I think what's being depicted is that front setback area is nicely paved with some nice pavers, and then landscaping begins after a certain portion called the apron, where you have a separation between the driveway and pedestrian walkway, and then there's also separate landscaping on either side of the ribbon, so both on the east and west side as depicted. I do agree with staff, though, that you could probably create some variety in that walkway. A straight shot might be too rigid in a sense, and it's not even as classy. So if you have some couple of perhaps trees or some longer or taller landscaping along the way, and you're breaking up the rhythm of that walkway with kind of creating more of a pathway, not only are you providing interest, but you are at the same time kind of creating more of a variety from a street point of view. So I do think it's conducive to separate a walkway from a driveway, but I do think that area needs some work and could probably get softened.
Okay.
Besides that, I think it's well designed and well done.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. Mr. Walsh?
Okay, yes, thank you for the presentation. I generally tend to agree. I think that the overall design is well done. I think the hip roof style blends in well with the neighborhood, which has quite a few of those similar styled roofs. And I like a lot of the detailing that was provided, the recessed windows, the stepping details under the eaves, I think is nice. I think staff is right to call out that they should be done of high quality, but the fact that they're there, I think, is a nice touch. I'm not really, frankly, bothered by the balcony on the front of the property facing the street. I agree with Mr. Simonian. It's very well set back from the street. It's not that prominent a feature to me, so I'm not sure that I would have called for it to be removed. One thing that I didn't exactly like was the above the front entranceway on the second floor. There's this like 8-foot by 8-foot little section that juts out from the building, and to me it just looks like a very tiny little appendage on the second floor that it didn't look great to me, and I would recommend that you think about not extending out that little section above there. It really serves no purpose. There's no room there. It's just to give us, a grand entranceway on the building. But when you see it in a rendering, it like sticks out as just a very small little scaled appendage. So just my recommendation. It's not something that I would want to put a condition upon. And I do also agree with Mr. Simonian's point about softening up the front. There's just too much hardscape there. If there's some way that you can work with the planning department and maintain code, have as minimal amount of hardscaping as possible, maybe you use decomposed granite for the walkway or something, to soften up and have more permeable materials. Because otherwise, it's just a lot of concrete. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Boyajian?
I agree with all comments my colleagues just said. And regarding the balcony, I don't have any issues with the balcony because I don't have any issues with the balcony because it's quietly far from the main street, so I don't see that it can have a visual perspective issue with entire neighborhood. So regarding the pathways and walkways, I think, I agree to softening more the landscaping and to bring it down that long way. I think it will be much easier even for residents to use, like psychological easiness to me than to follow that route. And then overall, I like the design very much because of I looked at the massing and compositional proportions. They look very nice to me. And regarding the garage doors, for me, it's not a condition, but from the only site plan, I think if it is not bothering the owners to have a one door, whole door, one big door, maybe it will be easier to use. If it's not bothering you, then I would keep two-door garage. So it depends on your convenience. And for the balcony, I understand maybe for staff, the balcony horizontal string is maybe too wide. So maybe if we add one more additional railing, maybe it will soften down this wide portion. So just recommendation. Okay. So, but I have no issues by keeping it.
Thank you, Ms. Boyajian.
Yeah.
Mr. Walsh, you didn't comment on the garage doors.
I didn't feel strongly about it. I actually tend to agree with Isabel that I kind of like the two doors. I think it helps break up the facade a little bit more. But again, I don't necessarily feel terribly strongly about it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I will also concur with my colleagues. It's a very well-designed project. Details are done well. The composition of colors and the mass and scale works well. And I think staff has done also an excellent job putting these conditions that I think that's gonna push it to the finish line. Windows, the window condition, I agree with staff. The landscape condition, I also agree with staff. You need to soften. I mean, it's a very long driveway, and you need to break it up and add more landscaping. And I think Mr. Simonian has a really good idea of adding that pedestrian feature if you choose to. In terms of overall, its quality, the use of quality materials is appreciated. I like the metal roof. I like the aluminum windows, and I like the way you did just the bottom sill and you recessed the window a little bit. It just works well with the style. And I agree also with Mr. Walsh. I think the roof shape and the overall composition of the matches the street. It has the same feel as the street. So it's a well-done project. I'm in support as well. In terms of the conditions, I'm in support of all the conditions. I also don't have an issue with the balcony. Had it been on 20 feet from the street, I would agree with staff. It's when you look at it, it's just a little bit too busy. And if not, I would put it as a recommendation. If you can rework it somehow, just maybe reduce it a little bit, play with it, where it blends in. in a better way, I think that will improve your front elevation. When you look at the front elevation, it's a very nice elevation, and that's the only thing that kind of like sticks out. And I'm not bothered to the point where I say remove the balcony, but I think staff has a valid point when it comes to that. Other than that, I like the material, I like the composition, I like the different touches you did, and I liked how you broke up the mass into garage doors. I guess we don't have support for that. I
It's
thought.
not something I feel
Yeah.
strongly about anyways.
Yeah, okay.
I think if they're okay with that
Yeah, and
situation, it's not a big deal.
And I would actually put it as a consideration and have maybe, I don't know if you've done that or not, just put one and see how it looks, just put them right next to each other. Because I think Mr. Somanian has a valid point when it came to the to emphasizing that horizontal element in the project. Other than that, and that might help your balcony issue. I mean, just try it out. It's a consideration. You don't have to follow through. Staff is very capable on dealing with these conditions as they're very minor. So I'm in support and I will entertain a motion.
So just to be clear, do you want to leave the removal of or moving of the balcony as a condition?
That condition will become a consideration.
Okay, to move that to a consideration
Correct.
instead of being a condition?
Correct.
Okay, I would agree with that.
And then it's up to them, and they can play with change the garage doors and see how that
Okay, and the other 6 conditions will remain?
will remain.
Okay, I'll move that motion.
We'll move to approve the project
To
with the
approve the
motion.
project with the 6 conditions and changing the item number 3, condition number 3 to a consideration.
And I have a question on that, Mr. Walsh, Mr. Chair. I agree with the motion as presented. My only question would be is, I think it would be a good idea to get staff's, to kind of reread conditions 1 and 2, just so we make sure that what they have in their mind is in line with what we're saying, because
Okay.
what I heard earlier when staff was recommending some of their conditions might have been a little bit different than what I kind of prescribed. So might be worthwhile.
We'll go to Mr. Platt and he'll tell us what he has.
Yeah, our condition actually was to. Turn me off. I didn't beat that, Roger. Come on. We originally thought we could get rid of the pedestrian walkway and just use the driveway as a pedestrian path to increase the amount of landscaping. I think what we've heard is that the board would like to have some sort of separate pedestrian path, but that we need to enhance the amount of landscaping along that pathway to meet the code requirement, which we can't deviate from. One thought I have is if we have modestly sized stepping stones, we often include those just in the landscape count because it's not a fully paved area. So that could be one way to solve the problem. And then we heard Mr. Simonian say that you wanted to see some breaks or some variety, and I take that to think that it's kind of not just a straight shot. There might be some meandering to the path. Is that correct?
And if you're using pavers, for example, they could be more rectilinear pavers, which would work really well with the design you have, which kind of stagger as they move, and once in a while it creates an opportunity where you have a little wider landscaping, and then it thins out again.
Okay.
So with these kind of railroad type of staggered, long precast concrete look would be very conducive to your design, and it would give staff their desire too to soften up that walkway.
Okay, so we'll keep, we'll revise condition 2 to acknowledge that we're keeping a 6-foot pedestrian pathway, but that it'll be paved with some sort of stepping stone type pavers, and then with additional landscaping to kind of break up the line as well as bring the required plants in. And then we've heard a consideration for the balcony to be shortened, which the applicant can then take to heart or not. And we heard that the garage door will be a consideration for a single garage door. And I believe all of the other staff conditions will be maintained.
Except for the number 3, it will not be a condition anymore. It'll be a...
Of course, yeah, that's a consideration, yeah.
And now you can remake your motion.
Okay. I so move that we approve the project with the 6 agreed conditions and the balcony consideration as just articulated by Mr. Black.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Welsh and a second by Board Member Simonian. This will be roll call. Board Member Boyajian?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Chair Benlian?
Yes.
Okay, motion stands 4-0.
Congratulations. I don't have any cards for the second.
Oh. Can you fill out a speaker card when you get a chance? Yeah. All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Design Review Board. The last item this evening is PDR 1827273. It's a review of a proposal to construct a new approximately 6,400 square foot, 64,000 square foot parking structure with rooftop parking. The structure will be located in the northern portion of a 98,700 square foot site, which is the location of the Star Ford dealership at 1101 South Brand Boulevard. The project will require demolition of the existing surface parking lot on the northern portion of the site. No changes to the existing dealership building will be made aside from the construction of ramps which connect the existing building with the proposed parking structure. Vehicle access will remain as it currently exists from all 3 adjacent streets, South Bryan Boulevard, West Chevy Chase Drive, as well as Palmer Avenue. Just jumping right in, staff believes that the site planning for the project is appropriate for several reasons. The site, or the dealership, I should say, is comparable to other large dealerships along Brand Boulevard. The proposed parking structure is located in line with the existing dealership building, so there is surface parking and landscaping between the street, Brand Boulevard, and the new structure.
Bless you.
Excuse me. And then it's located fairly close to West Chevy Chase Drive, with landscaping between it and the street. And then finally, as I previously mentioned, there aren't any changes to the existing driveways. With regard to mass and scale, staff is also supportive of the project. At the Brand Boulevard facade, a portion of the second floor is carved out from the facade, which successfully delineates the new building from the existing building. And you can see that kind of best on the top corner, the sort of bird's eye perspective. Right here, where this part of the building is sort of cut out, which delineates existing from proposed.
On that note, Mr. Kiesel, while you're up here, where is the second floor plan, this floor plan that you're referring to that's cut out?
Right here. This is the cutout.
I see. Because, and what sheet number is that, the way you have it? Is that sheet 1.4?
Yeah.
And you see, and this is kind of I've been trying to figure this out, that there's a ramp here, and this looks like this, this ramp maybe to the 4th floor. It's labeled as 2nd floor, but it has this ramp going.
I think that's a ramp underneath that ramp.
Oh, there's a yeah.
A lot going on.
I see.
Right, this ramp goes to the roof.
And then where is there a section or something that shows us the connection of this ramp to the existing building? Because in their section, they didn't go,
Yeah, not really.
I see.
You're correct.
But it's underneath that ramp somehow.
Yes.
You see it a little bit
You
on the
can sort of
elevation.
see it in the elevations right here.
Uh-huh.
There's a ramp here to the third, well,
I'm seeing the third,
Yeah,
I'm not seeing the
yes.
second, because the second, when I'm looking at the street front facade, there's a double height. Well, this is maybe an architect's question, but
this also may actually go, it may go down.
Roger,
But
the rendering, the perspective on the left, doesn't that show both of them?
no, it shows,
Well, I think what the concern is there's some ramp here on the second floor.
right,
I'm not sure that you can see it here, so
that's
let's,
something the architect
okay,
could
let's
answer.
pull the
Right.
architect up. It's a chance. Sorry about that. All right, again, with regard to mass and scale, the carved out portion, I think, is successful in delineating old from proposed. Also, the facade, the project is faced with ribbed metal panels, ACM panels, and stucco. There are also horizontal bands of metal framed windows that are located within the facade. So the materials used and their composition bring, strong horizontal but also strong vertical features to the project, which staff believes successfully sort of reduces, mitigates the mass of the project. And then finally, staff is also supportive of the design and detailing of the project, although we do have some suggested conditions that we feel would improve the project. And what I can do is I will go over those. The proposed parking structure, again, is faced with metal paneling, ACM paneling, as well as stucco. Staff recommends that the following changes to the design and materials will enhance the overall appearance of the building. The first change is at the West Chevy Chase Drive facade of the project. Eliminate the proposed stucco and replace with ACM paneling. So that is the primary facade of the building, but it still is street facing. And so we believed that an upgrade in material is warranted. The second suggestion is restudy the facade of the northwest corner of the building such that the materials wrap the building corner and terminate appropriately. And that is sort of this area in combined with this area. You typically wrap materials at the inside corner, and this looks like it's wrapped at the outside corner, where the material is here, and then it changes at the outside corner to here. So that was another suggestion. And then finally, at the west elevation, which is the west elevation, which is
But
this elevation here, basically right here. Staff is suggesting that the stucco used be smooth and that screed lines are installed within the stucco that mimic the ACM paneling, the dimensions of the ACM paneling. So additionally, staff recommends, and this is a fairly standard condition, that detailed drawings be provided where different materials meet so that we can ensure that the junction, the junctions are really treated well, appropriately. So finally, as conditioned, staff supports the design and detailing of the project because, or as conditioned, because the building materials used really reinforce the contemporary nature of the building contemporary design of the building. The project is compatible with the existing dealership, which is also more of a contemporary design and uses similar materials with an emphasis on the horizontality. And then finally, the various cladding material and aluminum window frames will give the structure more of a commercial appearance to help disguise the structure's use as a parking garage, basically. So that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that you, number one, adopt the negative declaration that was attached to the project, as well as approve the a project with the conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Any questions for staff?
I do have a question. On the drawings, there's stamps on here that are all marked in 2013. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, that building, I wasn't involved in the project at that time, but I believe the existing building was approved in 2013, and they just used...
Including the garage?
No.
Not the garage,
Oh.
just the actual dealership building.
Okay, so these stamps were from another approval, not from this actual?
This is project info from the
Right.
previous project.
This is from the approval of the dealership building.
Okay.
Dealership service building.
Any other questions?
My question is technical. Are these drawings updated later than we put it in here? Because I see on the elevations, your suggestions kind of applied already. Staff suggestions. Like mimicking the pattern of the facade division. For instance, here and here.
Yeah.
Well, here. No, they are same? Same thing.
They should be the same, yeah.
Yeah. Graphically maybe presented differently here. Yeah. Maybe for the scale.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and open up the public comments, and we have only one speaker, the architect, Robert Plant.
Hello, my name is Robert Plant. I'm with the architectural firm Flex Design Group. We were the architects for the Ford store originally. The question you had is, when we submitted it, we went back to the cover sheet of the original architectural drawings so they could see that we were following all the parking regulations, more parking than anything else. That was basically it. This is the sample board for Star Ford. The first time we did it, we're looking to use the exact same materials so that it doesn't look like this was built in 2013 and this was built in 2020, trying to match everything. We recently did a remodel for Pacific BMW. Again, we matched all of the original materials. If you drive by it on the street now, you don't even realize we made some changes to the building. We're looking to do the same thing, all the same materials, which are all standard Ford Trustmark materials. I think we've done 6 Ford Trustmark dealerships to date. Specifically, we just do car dealerships and restaurants. That's all our firm does. With regards to the project, we work very closely with the planning department, trying to facilitate their needs and our clients' needs. Steve Busjager, what's happened in the automotive industry, it's now all about inventory. The average customer looks on the internet, and if you've got it, they'll show up at your store. If not, they'll drive over to Galpin or they'll drive over to Ford of Montebello and buy there. I did a 21-acre facility for Galpin Ford, so they would have inventory. I just finished a 1,000-car parking structure for Sunrise Ford, which is another of their competitors, and we've secured planning approval in Ford of Montebello for a 400-car parking structure. It's kind of happening all over now. We do a lot of what they call inventory structures. One of the things that's very unique about inventory structures versus a parking structure, if it says it has 400 cars, you're going to see 400 cars come in the morning and 400 cars go out in the evening. In an inventory structure, you might see 4 cars all day. It's just a big warehouse for cars. That's the main difference of them. You don't have all the driving around, the noise, etc. They just need a warehouse in the sky because you just can't get the land anymore. Other than that, we, again, tried to use the materials of the original building, try to give it the same character. wrapping around the different sides. That kind of ends my 2 minutes.
And any thought to the staff conditions, and do you have any issues with any of them?
No, I've worked with them enough that I think we could get through those and go back and forth and work them out. This is, I think, our 8th project in the city over the last 15 years, so we've done quite a bit of work with them.
Any questions for? Go for it, Mr. Simon.
I want to repeat my initial question that I had for staff in regards to the ramp that connects the second floor to the existing building. Can you come up and locate it or show us
Yes.
where it actually is situated on the side?
Let me tell you a little bit about the building. The model that you're looking at of the existing dealerships, that's the original design model that we used to design Star Ford. Star Ford has probably one of the most warped decks I've ever done, and I've probably done 25 of these structures. The reason being that it was designed for truck service. So we have 22 feet clear inside on the low side of the street, and then we've got 4 feet of elevation change in the back of the service garage. So there's 26 feet of clear. We really warped the heck out of the deck in this far corner so that we could make everything work for the building. When we had this building approved in planning, we had to trim some of our fascias down so the front of the building, the deck really warps down. I want to say there's almost 6 feet of warp from the top of the ramp up to the corner I'm going to point at.
There's a pointer over here, by the way.
Oh, yeah, here.
There you have it.
Yeah. So the second floor ramp is literally you'd come up this ramp from here up straight across in on the second floor. So it's tucked back in here, and all it is a little, like a tang that comes across and ties the two buildings. I think it's only like 2 feet long.
Understood.
And as you drive up here, there's almost 5 feet of slope to here.
I see. So when the original building was designed, you had anticipated some sort of a phase 2 where you're going to
It was originally
incorporate
designed
your
for a
ramp.
future parking structure.
I see.
We had done probably 100 studies for Mr. Busjager at this site and the Civic BMW body shop, which is just up the street, and kept meeting with planning, going back and forth on them. And at the time in the recession, he couldn't afford the parking structure. It was always in the future, and that's
Now
today.
it's a time, yeah. That makes sense. Now your diagrammatic location of the ramps coupled with what you just said and the drastic drop in the slope on the existing roof kind of all ties everything together.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I did have a second question, but now I forgot. If I remember, I'll bring it up again.
Anybody else?
Yes. So the panels, the rib metal panels here, they look quite dark here, but the ones at the dealership are a lighter color. So just to confirm, they will be the exact same color as exists
Yes.
right now on the dealership building?
Yeah, it's the lighter of the two on the board.
Here.
Oh,
Sorry.
It looks like an Apple computer.
Yeah.
I've got one right.
okay. And did you do any consideration for reducing the mass of that northeast corner? It's just a very prominent feature of it, and facing Brand and very close to Glendale, Chevy Chase. Did you consider doing any kind of adjusting to that? Because it just looks like a big, massive blank billboard to me.
We did most of the cutting and the massing on the other side of the building, which is correct. We were trying to get his car counts up again. Again, most commercial buildings are economic equations, basically. We could push the ACM back some, the darker elements back in to give a little bit more interest in it. On the ground level, they're basically he's looking for service bays in that area. He needed 4 more service bays because they've overwhelmed.
Well, that's on the west side. I'm talking about on the east side, the northeast side that faces the corner of Brand
corner of Brand.
and
Wait a minute.
Chevy Chase.
The northeast side,
Where
okay.
you have the shear panel.
This right
Yeah.
here?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the shear panel for the tall building.
Okay.
That was the minimum the structural engineer could live with.
Okay, so you did consider
Yeah.
getting it a smaller, okay. All right, just
Yeah,
wanted
we
to confirm
chop
that, so.
the other side back quite a bit, and the current flow into the side in the dealership, talking with their sales staff, is that most of the people come in from that northeast corner versus the southeast or the center entry.
And for the size of the structure, it's actually smaller
Yeah.
than.
Yeah, we
than normal.
I
squeezed
wanted
it
to
way
confirm
down.
Do you know that there are any plans for signage on that, or is it going to be left in the condition that it's being deployed right here?
I don't think we have any more allowable signage area.
Okay.
He would love to put more signage on it.
It doesn't look like they do either on Brand.
Okay.
I do remember my question now.
Go for it.
You mentioned inventory parking, and I noticed you have a 60-degree angle on your inventory parking. Is there a special code section that deals with inventory parking, or is it basically the same code section as regular commercial parking?
Typical inventory parking, they don't show any lines at all. What you'll find in a dealership is about this time of the year, all of the inventory gets shipped in because they can't sell the 2020s yet. So they'll pack it up as tight as they possibly can to where it could be 6 deep. And they'll get them to where, like, you can only fit a credit card between the cars. And then the manufacturers will release them to sell the cars, and then they'll start moving, they'll sell them and start filling them out. But that pretty much happens at almost all the stores right now. They're inventorying up for the September sales.
I see. Okay, so, but the way you've depicted it, your kind of reduced aisle widths and the 60 degrees parking, if this thing went away from inventory parking in the future and turned into regular parking, do your
You
widths
could still make that happen, correct.
fulfill the code section?
That's why it's drawn that way,
That's why it's
basically.
drawn at the
It does.
angles. Good.
It does.
That was my question, is, things change, obsolescence occur
Yeah.
in the futures, and what would happen 20 years from now when the whole model changes and you don't need to go to a dealership, perhaps, to buy a car. But staff just answer that
Yeah,
question.
another unique thing about this and a couple of the other ones I've done, a typical parking structure's got 8 foot, 4 inches clear. And these have 15 clear. So you could actually turn this into a retail center and have nice big 12-foot high ceilings. So the second floor, I think we've got 10-foot clear, and then you've got the lift for the beams. So you could actually, it could be an office building when we're done 10 years from now.
8.4 is your minimum for your
The only,
ADA.
yeah, the thing you would have to do is your grade level is going to be sloping. You'd have to go back in and regrade it. But other than that, you could turn it into another building.
Good.
Cool. Thank you.
So we'll see you in about 30 years when you come back for another approval of adaptive reuse.
For phase 3.
Phase 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and close the public comments portion, and we'll open it up for deliberation, and we'll start with Mr. Walsh.
I mean, I like the design. I think it respects the existing dealership very well. I think the materials are high quality. I think staff did a good job coming up with the conditions that they did. My only concern, again, was that corner that, it's just very broad beam, and I can easily see banners being hung from it, and stuff like that. So as long as they've done, as much as they could to minimize it, then I'm reasonably satisfied. I particularly like the banding of the windows. I think it really looks very nice, very modern, very Bauhausy. And so I think that with staff's conditions, and I know that there's a residential property right behind it, but I mean, it is still, it's appropriately zoned for, dealership. So I'm not sure that there's much that we could or should do about the impact on the resident behind it. But so.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, one more thing. I would have liked to have seen some landscaping plan. I mean, I know that there was an approved plan in 2013, but as this is a brand-new building, I would have liked to have seen, whether they had proposed any landscaping. Maybe that could have helped alleviate some of the brutalness of the look of it on the street front. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Mr. Simonian?
I agree, and I support the project as well. I think it's well thought out and well positioned. I would imagine that these projects are very difficult as an architect to get involved with because it's all about dollars and cents. And at the same time, you got to fulfill code sections of a city, et cetera. So overall, the articulation of the building and the way, you know, for example, the window frames are kind of depicted, and the way that the different panels are integrated, and the way you're able to kind of connect it to the existing building, I think works well. So overall, I support the project. I had jotted down landscaping, and I agree. I think at the moment, along Chevy Chase, there's certainly a good amount of landscaping, just because dealerships tend to want to liven up the street front. But when you turn the corner on Chevy Chase, it's minimal. You know, you basically have a building all the way to the PL. And I think there are some opportunities to perhaps create some landscaping, especially along your shear walls that are must-haves for you, where you're able to have some vines that maybe grow up, you know, along those shear panels in the form of some sort of a screen that's maybe situated along it, and just a little more lushness along that Chevy Chase front, because it is a very prominent street in the sense that it does connect San Fernando to our kind of downtown area, and so I would like to see, and I agree, of some more landscaping along there. We can't really have cross communication, but I'm sure the chair would open it up and have you come up and ask some questions.
Go for it.
We were building up to the current landscaping, so there'll still be 6 feet along that whole side.
And that's what I was going to say, like.
Yeah, it's shown
if
in
you
the
look
site
there,
plan. At the very top, there's a 6-foot
You have,
dimension.
like-
So I might stand corrected here then. There is 6 feet of landscaping, as you're saying, along the northern edge of the building to the PL that you're maintaining as landscaping?
That's
It's
where
on
Chevy
A1
Chase
too.
turns.
Yeah, we show it
I see. So this entire portion is landscape?
Yep. Yeah, it currently is. We weren't going to touch it. We built right up to the existing
Oh. Well, I was under the impression that that wasn't the case with the small scale that I had, so I apologize.
That's no problem.
But I'm glad you actually have 6 feet. That is a good amount. Okay. Then overall, I do support the project, and I do support staff's conditions. I think the incorporation of the grids to be in line with the metal paneling, I think will help greatly. Turning the corner.
Blend in better.
Oh, blend in better, and I'll actually emphasize the proportionality of the building. Turning the corners with like materials is a must of a building of this size. And so overall, I think all those conditions are spot on, and so I support those conditions as well.
Ms. Boyajian?
Yeah, I did research few dealerships in the world, the most famous ones. So I was so excited with the design, and I really like the blending of the new structure with the old. So it's really hard to separate which one is the proposed one, which one is existing. So for the future, and I tried to break down a staff recommended the mass on the print on the right side. And then it's just a suggestion for the future, maybe if it will be possible, maybe to add a glazing vertical in the mass, because on the existing facade we have that glazing shown very much, but this is if in the future they convert the building into another function. So I was thinking maybe we can change this aluminum boards into glazing boards in the future. So it's not for now. So, and then overall, I like the design very much. So, and after I see the materials, I saw the materials today, I'm more supporting the material solution also, combination of colors, because on the renderings it looks completely different than what we saw on the real boards. Yeah, so.
We could make copies that were
Yeah,
real.
it's always like that. Prints are bringing different colors, so it's not them. Yeah, and then I agree with my colleagues about Chase side by improving more landscaping over there, so maintaining the existing and improving more. And I think it will be a nice addition to the city, to that site of the center. So, and I support with the staff conditions also regarding mimicking the stucco, bringing it to more to the proportional mimicking with the facade divisions with the aluminum boards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I concur with my colleagues. Well-designed parking structure or building. Actually, it's a good-looking parking structure. So it has a lot of features, and I think the materials chosen make all the difference when it comes to building like that. And I understand your constraints because you're trying to work with an existing building, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing your best to make it as part of the existing building so it doesn't look like an add-on, because those are like the worst projects ever. And I'm glad when this is done, it's going to look like one building that was built at the same time. I agree with my colleagues. I think it's well done, well articulated. I understand when you're dealing with huge parking structures, there are limitations when it comes to shear walls and when it comes to these things. And I appreciate the fact that you came in and you kind of explained the heights inside the parking structure and the way the floor is warping, because it's a little bit harder for people that are not, like, we typically deal with apartment buildings, houses, and stuff like that. So we don't deal with a parking structure for a dealer every day, so they're a little bit harder to understand. I appreciate the fact that a lot of effort had gone into it, and I appreciate the fact that staff has done a good job with their conditions, because I think they're all spot on, as Mr. Simonian has indicated. So I'm in support. And
can I just throw something in, just based on what you just said, Mr. Benlian? You will be doing more of these in the near future. This is one of 3 inventory garages that we're working with Mr. Plant and other dealerships on. And our goal has been to not have them look like parking decks, to have them, they clearly are, and no one will confuse them, but to bring a more commercial skin to them. And what we're trying to do on each one is kind of do different things, so we're not going to just have a kind of a standard model. So it sounds like you support that kind of overall goal, I hope, because that's what we're sharing with the applicant.
I commend the effort, Mr. Platt. I think this is very successful.
Okay, good. We'll let everyone know, so thank you.
So I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Well, I'm sorry to interject. Remember, you need to adopt a
Neg,
negative
yeah.
declaration.
Let's do that.
I move to adopt the negative declaration.
Second?
Okay, roll call. Mr. Simonian?
Yes?
Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Ms. Boyajian?
Yes.
And Mr. Benlian?
Yes.
Okay.
So now I move to approve the project with the stated conditions by staff.
And I actually, let me just, it's the 5 conditions that were in the staff report, as well as amend landscape plans to provide more lush landscaping along Chevy Chase? Is that-
No, Mr. Kiesel,
Or
thank you
don't
for
even
that
worry about
clarification. I had brought that up, but then the applicant had pointed out, along with the chair, that there is a 6-foot ribbon of landscaping along the entire Chevy Chase side.
Right, right.
And so I don't think we need any more area than that.
About
Now,
planting lushness, the amount of planting.
yeah, and
That's where I was
we
going.
don't have a landscape plan, so I assume staff will be working with the applicant to achieve a level of lushness that's appropriate.
Well, what's out there now is what they're proposing to keep. If you want to see more plants within that same area, that might be a condition you entertain.
I
Otherwise,
think they left the existing and they're going to the existing.
correct.
Right.
They're leaving the existing as it
Yeah,
stands.
I don't have a problem with the
I
area
don't
of the
have a problem
landscaping,
with
yeah.
that as well.
I would imagine the dealership is going to landscape it in an appealing way to attract customers, you know,
Yeah.
in a sense. So,
So no,
yeah, I would move to approve the
I wouldn't mind
project.
putting in a consideration for adding more. I mean, right now, the plan, I think, shows like palm trees and stuff like that, but I don't recall that there are actually palm trees on the site when I visited it.
Well, we actually, since it's a new project in a sense, we could, Mr. Welsh, ask the architect to put together a landscape plan and have staff work with them on. So certainly within the preview of this board of a project of this size, I would assume there's going to be some sort of a landscape plan, right? And I'm getting a nod from the architect. So I think that would be good form to add a condition. So I'm glad that we're actually discussing this. So in a sense, in regards to the conditions are concerned, you know, we're moving the project with the conditions as depicted on the staff report with an additional item, which is the architect providing planning with a landscape plan.
Sounds good.
Now, if we're doing that, we probably should give a little more guidance. If, right now, there appears to be ground cover with some small trees, is that right, Rhonda?
yeah, it looks like they're purple leaf plum.
Okay, now if you're happy with that, then we could just say to a landscape plan that depicts the continuation of the existing landscape scheme. If you want something different than that, just let us know. And then,
Yeah, I'd be fine with a continuation of the overall landscape scheme
okay.
as is at the site. But I would add, staff is probably more in line with kind of overall landscape themes along Grand Boulevard and what, as an urban studio, you'd want to see.
We're very aware that dealerships would like to have zero landscaping in general, so.
And I'm
so
treading
whatever we
lightly,
can get,
and
we're happy.
I'm
and-
treading lightly with my statements based on that comment. I realize the economics at play here. So I think just a landscape plan that the architect would provide, that would be a continuation of the same theme that's present at the site, with staff looking over and making comments as necessary, I think would suffice for the board's comments at this point. That would be my condition.
Just a modest.
And now you can make the motion.
So I move to approve the project with the conditions as stated in the staff report, plus the additional requirement of the landscape, of the architect providing a landscape plan to the planning staff.
Right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
A motion was made to approve the project with conditions. This will be a roll call. Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. Welsh.
Yes.
Ms. Boyajian,
Yes.
and Mr. Benlian.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries 4-0. We have two sets of minutes to approve this evening, and it looks like we
We have quorum for all of them, for both.
yeah.
So the first one, July 11, Mr. Simonian can't vote on because he was absent. So
Correct.
can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 11?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Any second? Ms. Boyaji?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, motion was made to approve the
Approve the
minutes
July
of
11th.
July 11th.
Yes.
Roll call, Mr. Welsh.
Yes.
Ms. Boyajian.
Yes.
And Mr. Simonian,
Was absent?
right? Mr. Benlian.
Yes.
Okay, now the minutes of the 25th.
Now, Mr. Walsh was absent, so I need a motion from Mr. Simonian.
I move to approve the minutes of July 25th.
Is there a second? All right, thank you. A motion was made to approve the minutes of July 25th, 2019. Roll call, Mr. Simonian,
Yes?
Ms. Boyajian,
Yes.
Mr. Welsh, nothing.
Abstain.
Yep. And then Mr. Benlian.
Yes.
Great. Motion carries 3-0. I believe that's all we have tonight.
A motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Adjourned.